All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. And we're so happy that you could join us. Better late than never. My name is Tori Nelson, and I'm really excited to be here. I've been living in Singapore for about 2.5 years. Known Andrea for almost that time through AWA, the American Women's Association, through the Listen Ladies Support Group, the Walking Group, which she is a co-leader of, and also through the AWA magazine. So I'm going to start off with a short intro, and I still couldn't include everything, but I wanted to share at least some of the more relevant points about Andrea. Andrea McKenna Brankin is a 49-year-old married mother of one and journalist who lives a full life with bipolar disorder. She has a long and impressive resume, but I'll just again focus on the most relevant points. She was a journalist for quite a while. She still writes about mental health and expat issues for a variety of magazines. She hosts a web talk show, Skepterhood Talk. She volunteers as a residential treatment center for abused teen girls, teaches conceptual writing, is a certified yoga instructor, coaches her daughter's kids rugby team, and mentors a couple others, as she was a U.S. select side rugby player for many years. She was also a USA boxing competitor and played field hockey while at Boston University, where she graduated from the School of Journalism in 1993. And she's accomplished a lot more, but we're here to discuss her latest feat. She's now an author, having written a book on her life called Bipolar Phoenix. So you could see the cover of the book right there. It is a mental health survival story. Andrea came up with the idea while a member of the AWA Writers Group and former Writers Group chair Lynn Carey edited the book, and former AWA photography group leader Karen Lucas shot the author photo. Now, the book is available on Amazon.com and Kindle. It has many twists and turns, but I am happy to report it does have a very happy ending. So how this is going to work right now is Andrea and I are going to have a brief conversation. She's going to do 2 readings from her book. Andrea would also love to take your questions, so you can ask some questions down in the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. And we'll get to as many of them as we can. So without further ado, I have great pleasure to welcome Andrea, and congratulations on this book.
Hi, I don't think I'm on yet. Am I on yet? Hi guys, hi everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Tori, thanks so much for hosting. It means a lot to me. I love working with you, and I'm just glad that you're doing this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. Now, I did read this book and I learned so much about it. It's a really compelling, raw, honest take on a life with really some amazing ups and downs. But can you start off by telling us, how did this book come about?
Well, a little bit's in the book of how I kind of got started. When I turned things around, I decided, look, enough. I've got to help people. I had some people along the way that said, tell your story, tell your story. I would lecture at universities in Chicago and the Police Academy and other places with the National Alliance on Mental Illness as one of their speakers. And they'd say, where's your book? Where's your book? So I said, well, when am I going to have time to write this? Fast forward, Chris, he whisks me off to Singapore, and all of a sudden I had time. And I joined the AWA. Like, I am a big fan of the AWA, and I joined the writers group. And then I had time, I had motivation, I had support. Lynn Carey, my editor, fantastic journalist and editor. And that was really how it came about, that I decided, okay, it's time to tell my story. And yes, I've been scared about this, but it's important that we share our experiences so we can normalize mental illness and give people hope that there's a way out. It doesn't have to be the end or a death sentence or a final label that will end everything. In fact, it's not. And I can tell you from my T-shirt, Bipolar Phoenix, and the book cover, that this life goes on, and you can have a full life if you work on it. And that's what the book is about, as well as telling all that crazy stuff that happened, which people who know me know, and people who are learning about my life before Singapore know that, yeah, I mean, definitely twists and turns, but the story is worth being told, because, and suicide attempt, I survived very difficult mental health moments, and here, and I should tell the story because it's worth sharing that there's hope. So
Yeah.
that's how the book came about.
I like I think that one of the first chapters, you say, my best, most sincere advice is don't wait.
I'm back.
Okay, that's okay. This is what, yeah, I know you had a little issue before with the signal, but it looks like you're back. So you had mentioned in the beginning of the book, my best,
Yeah,
most
sorry.
is
Sorry, go ahead.
don't your advice is don't wait, start working on your recovery now. The nature of the illness is that it ebbs and flows. And I think you also talked about how it's a journey, it's not a destination. So can you talk a little bit about how this book might help those who maybe don't have a direct experience with mental health and increase awareness about it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it talks a lot about specifically bipolar disorder and how my life was manifested with, or how the illness manifested in my life in the different ways that it hurt me, the interesting ways that it maybe helped me. But I think right now, if I could put the lens on our lives with COVID, we were all put under unbelievable duress that most people haven't felt before. And I was pretty okay with the lockdown because I'm used to being inside my head and kind of going crazy a little bit. So I think that where it relates to people, even if you don't have bipolar disorder, is understanding how a mental illness can affect you and also what can you do about it. I suggest many things in the book. Every chapter has a topic that talks about one particular part of my life and what did I do about it. Some was exercise, yoga, meditation, see a doctor, get a dog. We'll read about that today. So I just think that it gives you I give you permission in a sense to say, even though I'm not bipolar, I can relate to this, that, or the other. People get divorced. People have suicide attempts. People have depression, anxiety, work problems. All these things that happen in the book happens to everyone in your life. I just happen to have bipolar disorder. So I think that that's kind of how we can relate to other people and other issues.
So when were you diagnosed with bipolar disorder?
Yeah, that's so fuzzy because it was such a messed up time in my life. Late 20s is when I started to decline, to be honest. And I think that it was 2001 or 2002 was my actually first suicide attempt. And up until that point, everyone said, you have anxiety, you have depression, here's some medicine for this, here's some medicine for that. And was really common 20 years ago to be diagnosed after the fact, to think that it's just depression or just anxiety. But it was always suicide attempts that identified bipolar disorder for many, many years, because 50% of people who have bipolar attempt suicide.
Wow.
And so I fell into that category. Once you have someone in the hospital that's had a suicide attempt, now it's time to look at what are the other symptoms. And it kind of like hindsight, looking back saying, oh yeah, you have bipolar disorder. You don't just have depression. So that was kind of how I maybe backed into the diagnosis. Again, very common 20 years ago. Nowadays, they're catching it earlier with earlier intervention, with more understanding in community and society and schools and families and churches and community service organizations where you can catch it earlier, to be fair. So maybe this book too will catch people earlier before they have a suicide attempt, prevent all that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, I think that would actually
2001, 2002, maybe.
Yeah. Into your first reading, which is a fairly heavy topic, but an important one. So so I'm going to mute myself and stop the video so that we could just focus on your reading.
Okay, shall I just begin then, Tori? Oh, I'm frozen.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I hope you guys can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't remember exactly the details of how the next 24 hours unfolded, but I do know that I did it. I took all my Klonopin one at a time until I could not function or feel any pain, and ended up in the emergency room at Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago. The ER staff saved my life. Here's what I recall. Though I'm not sure what time of day it was or which day it was, possibly it was July 9th, 2002. I remember feeling very calm about taking all the meds. I felt relief that this life, my life, would soon be over. I'm sure I was playing music in my apartment, but I cannot remember what. I think I had sweats on. I know I started burning paper in my flat, thinking maybe I'll just die in a fire. And shockingly, not thinking of how starting a fire in my third floor flat might hurt someone else in the building. It's unbelievably dangerous, irrational thinking at work. I recall my friend Sherry was taking care of my adopted dog, Buddha, because I was supposed to be away in Ohio for the week with my then partner, boyfriend. There was only me and my cat, McCool, and I didn't want him to starve to death after I died. So I quite calmly called my ex-husband to ask him to come and get my cat. I do remember the phone conversation, and he did come over. Obviously, we never discussed it later beyond him saying I was just crazy. He knew something was wrong and I needed help. He ended up bringing me to his house, which used to be our house, and I managed to also call my tattoo artist, who was friends with my therapist. The last thing I remember before waking up in the hospital was passing out on a patch of wildflowers that he had planted in his backyard. I had only been gone from the house a few months, and I know I purchased that bag of seeds. Strange how things happen.
Just really powerful. I mean, to hear that. I mean, the description, what was it like to write that?
So I do some journal writing, and honestly, it was like, put your pen on the paper and write what happened, write what happened, write what happened, write what was how your mind was thinking when you're reliving that memory. So that section came from a lot of that, of stream of consciousness. This is what I remember, and this happened, and this has happened, and I felt bad about that. And you know, it's kind of almost newsy, and I am a news writer, so I just wanted it to be straightforward. And the hindsight of that I fell into the wildflower patch, I do remember that. It's the last thing I remember.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how you remember, you know, these certain little minutia details, and other things you don't remember the day, you don't remember what you were wearing or the clothes or anything like that. And so you mentioned this happened kind of in your late 20s, early 30s. So
yeah,
did you have any signs or symptoms leading up to that beforehand, or, you know, were you?
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, I did. So, I mean, like, people who have met me, I mean, you've met me, you know, I'm kind of gregarious and, you know, outward and forward and friendly and well, you know, let it rip, as I always say. I was like that before, but there were, as I say, the word declining behaviors. I wasn't sleeping. I was working out 5 or 6 hours a day. I was eating sugar all the time, like cookies, ice cream. I mean, I didn't eat real food at some points. This is nuts. You know, I played rugby, that burned off a lot of energy, but we had crazy parties and people were doing weird things, you know, wearing costumes and doing a handstand on the bar. And, you know, it was, let's be honest. I mean, I was in my late 20s, you know, it was fun. And I think a lot of it, what I mean to say is that, yes, I maybe stood out, I was a little crazy, but people didn't know what was going on in my head. But I was having trouble at work. I was fighting with my bosses. I developed a stutter. And it was so weird because I would be interviewing people, much like you are now, and I would really stutter. And I always say this is an even weirder one, is that I would type words backwards. So I would misspell words and type backwards. I mean, my brain was going nuts, and I was just so much stress and so much pressure, and the chemicals were just firing, and I couldn't control it. Yeah. So what happened with the lead up to this also was relationship problems, and that's a big trigger for mental health. And it's a big trigger for bipolar disorder. So yeah, definitely, you know, crazy behaviors, but all from relationship pressures and the chemistry being kicked off. And yeah.
Well, the challenge with mental illness is that it's invisible. You know, it's not like a broken leg or cancer or diabetes where, yeah, it's all on the inside. So you often have people say, oh, well, just suck it up, just move, get on with life and that type of thing. And so it's really hard to comprehend. So I think your book does an amazing job of really explaining the internal battle that you went through. And like I said, an unusually honest way. I mean, you really put yourself out there, which I think was very courageous.
At first it seemed I was very forthright. One thing my late father had taught me is to be forthright. And I remember writing that in my college essay. So I was very sure that I wanted to be as honest as possible, not only as a trained journalist, but as a McKenna, as who I am and who my mom and dad raised me to be. And telling the truth and being as honest as possible was the only way to make this work, to make this real, and to make this effective. And, I was really scared, and I was more scared. And I know Martin's on here, who I've talked with, Martin Williams, who's in the book actually. And I talked with him about how afraid I was to publish and to lay it all out there. Well, for 6 years I've been working on this, and I never was afraid to tell anyone in person, really. But for some reason, like, it really triggered me. And I had a session, walking around the Botanic Gardens and, going through everything that I was worried about with Martin, and worked through it. But yeah, I was scared, but truth is the only way. It's the only way people are going to learn and heal and grow.
Yeah. The truth will set you free. So we have a question from an audience member. As a new mother, I'm wondering if your symptoms flared up or changed at all postpartum.
That's a great question. I actually know another author who pregnancy kicked off bipolar for her. So for me, it was a divorce. For her, it was a pregnancy. It did not emerge on its own. What happened was I was on controlled medication, safe medication throughout my pregnancy. It was a reduced amount, but I had a great pregnancy. I mean, I had Chris, my husband. I just moved here. I had a really good attitude. I had friends at the AWA. I had a lot of good setup. My family in America and friends, super supportive. So I felt very fortified. But what happened was when I had the baby, I thought, oh, I have to be able to be awake. What's my key to being awake? Not being on medication. Because when I'm off medication, I'm like, woo, 20 hours a day. And I thought, I need to do this. I need to go off my medication. So I did. And that was the decline there. It was things like, I know if you know me, you'll think, how could you be worse than this? But talking a mile a minute, talking more than I do normally, not eating right, eating a lot of sugar, of course, not sleeping. Maybe like things like you want to calm down. So like I'd like be taking care of my baby and I'd be like, I need to calm down. I have a beer, does nothing. Absolutely no effect. Have 2 beers, no effect at all. Nothing was calming me down. So pregnancy affected the postpartum, it affected me in that way. And I knew that I needed to go back on meds, but I was able to choose things that were safe for breastfeeding. And so pregnancy did not kick it off for me, but managing pregnancy did, because I made a choice to go off my meds. And once I got back on track with my psychiatrist and then that took care of that. But I knew what to look for. I did not have postpartum depression. I knew what to look for, and I was aware of that. So I hope that answers that question. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it sounds like, being aware and being mindful, and just making sure that if you sense that you're having some problems, to be able to find a way to act on that. So yeah,
that's the one thing I've been really good about is that's why the book is so important, because you have to be able to look at yourself and say, am I eating? Am I sleeping? Am I talking too much? Am I arguing too much? Am I whatever, so.
Yeah. We have another question. Did you find your bipolar diagnosis helpful? There is an argument that putting a label on someone can have a negative impact, but it can also help target the response if you know what the issue is.
Absolutely. I felt a tremendous amount of relief to be sitting in the hospital. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we know what's wrong with you. And I was like, I thought it was over. I thought I was going to die. I thought I cannot live anymore. Mm-hmm. And to know that there was a diagnosis with a treatment, with medication, with options, that absolutely gave me tremendous relief. And yeah, I worry about the label The one thing I don't worry about though is people say, oh my God, you have to take medication for the rest of your life. I'm like, yeah, let's take it for the rest of my life. This is the greatest thing that could have ever happened, is that I have a solution, that I have treatment, that I have hope. And I feel sorry for the people who don't choose to take medication, cannot use medication. And that happens because I know for me, it saved my life. So I was happy. The diagnosis saved my life. The medications have saved my life.
Yeah. I do notice that you have someone very important to you who's kind of lingering around. So I think that's terrific. I know that she's kind of one of your two main reasons for being. So that's wonderful. I'm not sure if you want to introduce her or not.
Georgia makes me want to live every day.
Yeah.
And Chris.
And Chris. Exactly. All right. Why don't we go to your second reading from your book, Bipolar Phoenix, and this is a little longer, but I think it's such a compelling story because it covers the whole spectrum of the lowest lows and then the highest highs. So I think it's a powerful story for you to tell.
Yeah, please bear with me for a minute or two. This is a little longer.
So I'm going to mute myself and you just read whenever you're ready, Andrea, okay?
Chris says there's lipstick all over my face. Oh, well, this is recorded. Thanks. Always helpful. Okay, here we go. Reading number 2. This is from an important chapter on my dog, Loki. I can attest to how dogs in general help with mental health management. Here's the story of how my psychiatric service dog, Loki, came in and out of my life and what he did for me in helping me battle bipolar disorder. I was burnt to ashes with no way out. He helped me pull myself out of hell. I had nothing when I came home to my mom's house in Connecticut after my harrowing experience in Ohio. I had nothing, no money, no jobs, no friends. I was lucky to have gotten out of Ohio with my life. So as miserable as it was, I had that, but I was alone. My family had rescued me, but couldn't begin to grasp just how sick I was. I wanted a dog, and I needed a dog that needed me. A rescue was the obvious option. My sister Patty and her husband lived and worked in Hartford, Connecticut, about a 50-minute drive from my mom's house in Mystic where I was staying. They believed a dog would help me in my recovery, and they were on the lookout for one for me. Within a few weeks of me landing at home, they found Loki, a forlorn-looking white pit bull terrier that had been abandoned outside a Hartford apartment that my brother-in-law's father owned. The temperature that day at the time of his rescue was around 20 degrees, and he had survived there for 2 days on his own. It was a miracle, and it became very clear he was here for a reason. I think he can help you, and you can help him, my brother-in-law told me after he rescued Loki from the dog pound just hours before he was to be euthanized. He said Loki had a purpose. He was right. The first time I laid eyes on Loki was at the vet who was housing him right after he was saved from the dog pound. He was stout. He was drooling. His fur was so short and white that he looked almost pink. I felt sure he knew he was going to come live with me. He came right up to me, and I can't recall him showing any hesitation to trust me. And I knew that I could trust him too. We were going to be buddies. So we saved Loki, and Loki saved me. I was no longer alone. We named him Loki after the Marvel Comics character who was the master of trickery, the illusionist, and the antithesis of Thor, who's, as we know, is the brother in the Marvel movies. I had read in one story that Loki was from Norse mythology. He turned into a white wolf. So the white pit bull, the outcast, became my Loki. He became my best friend and sometimes only friend. He was my shadow. He followed me everywhere, including the bathroom, where he always sat in the shower rug outside the bathtub when I took showers. We ran in the woods, on the beach, at the forest preserves. One time while visiting the Devil's Hop Yard State Park in Connecticut, he jumped in a small river and started floating down the stream. I screamed and started wading out into the river, car keys in hand, so afraid I would drop them and him. He took one look at me and started paddling very hard to get to me. I was so afraid I was going to lose him that day, but it was time for him to be with me. He made it back to the shore. Loki slept in my bed and sometimes pulled the covers off me when he wanted to go out at 3 a.m. He lived with me and my mom. She lost her homeowner's insurance because he was a pit bull, but everyone agreed he was helping me cope with my bipolar disorder. He centered me and gave me reason to get out of bed every day. What was once a daily ritual of how am I going to kill myself quickly turned into, but who would take care of my Loki? I truly lived for him. And fast forward to the end of this chapter. In my new life in Chicago, back in Chicago, I worked very hard to shed old fears, old personas, such as that of being helpless, and old habits. I took care of my dog and myself. I did yoga. I worked on exercises and advice from the 2006 book, The Secret. I reveled in my independence and ability to support myself. I worked at the YMCA as well as my journalism job to cover medication costs. I volunteered for NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I played rugby. I had fun. The anchor in all of this was coming home to my Loki. The healthier I felt mentally, the less I needed him to assist me in public. I felt this was a triumph. A year or so down the line, after moving back to Chicago and implementing lots of healthy living tools, as well as reducing exposures to those who did not serve me, both people and behaviors, I decided I was ready to date again. Eventually, I ran into an old rugby friend, an acquaintance really, who was friends with my rugby guy friends. He had a lovely smile and was so nice and fun to be with. The joke today is that I asked him out on Facebook. Totally true. I guess the important thing was that he said yes. Initially, we did not spend a lot of time together because of me needing to be home for Loki, as well as our busy schedules. But eventually the relationship grew. Despite the fact that I lived in a sometimes dodgy neighborhood, Chris even came over once to let Loki out when I was working late. He laughs about forgetting to take the poop bag and running away with Loki afterwards. Did you hear that part? I started spending most of my free time with Chris, and he was good to Loki. About 6 months into this amazing relationship, I thought, wow, I've really changed my life. But while one new part of my life was starting, another was ending. I didn't know Loki was sick. In June 2009, I was on vacation to my hometown of Mystic, Connecticut, and had Loki in a kennel. Chris had surgery on his leg and was unable to make the trip. I had a blast with friends and family while I was home, all documented on Facebook. But on the golf course with my mom, I got a call from the pet hotel. Loki wouldn't walk. He was sick. I said I'd be home that night. I had no idea what I was in for. I bought Chris a lobster, flew home with it on the plane, packed in ice from McDonald's. With thoughts of Chris also came dreaded thoughts of Loki. What would I do? I didn't have the money to care for a sick dog, and I didn't have the time to care for him with work. I felt so guilty. After 2 excruciating days, the vets said Loki was dying of kidney failure. Once they start to fail, the function cannot be regained. He would never recover. I had to apply for a $1,500 line of credit just to keep him alive for that week. I finally brought him home. I put my forehead to his forehead again, and I told Loki I had to let him go. The last thing Loki and I did was go to Letizia's Bakery on Division Street in Wicker Park and sit outside with a latte and a bagel. He was so skinny, but he seemed content. Still, I was sure euthanizing him was the right thing to do. At the vet's office, it was absolutely packed. It was Friday, July 3rd, and most people had the day off. So of course, everyone and their dog or cat was there. A man said to me, "Your dog looks pretty skinny." I didn't respond. What could I say? Well, he's dying and we're here to put him down. I was just numb. I knew that I would have to walk out of that vet office without him, and then people would know. Once we were in the treatment room, I held Loki in my arms and Chris held me. Loki did not want to die. He locked out his legs and growled at the vet as he put the needle in Loki's ankle. Oh, no, no. I cried out as Loki's heart stopped and he slid down onto the table. As I looked at my dog on the table, my best friend gone, Chris put his arms around me. He spoke the words that changed our relationship and my life forever. You lived for Loki. Now you have me. We're all crying over here.
I think everybody is. I mean, that is really such an emotional story. I mean, it is so hard to say goodbye to a pet, but I mean, this was obviously more than a pet. I mean, this was kind of a lifesaver for you. I mean, Loki was really saved your life. And I definitely want to say hi to Chris.
Hey.
Wonderful to see you and hear your part in this story.
Yeah, it's always tough to hear that that chapter.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, I'm so moved by what you said. Is that you had Loki, now you have me, and you have this wonderful woman as your wife. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, ended up good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, it's nice there's a happy ending. I mean, that's definitely a tough story to hear, but we're so glad that you found each other and and are able to have a happy life together. So no, that's great. Do you have any more pets at this point?
We have a cat named Snowball. To go
Okay.
find. We'll see if Snowball makes an appearance later.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm glad Chris got to come on and say hi to everybody too. Um, was that really painful for you to write that chapter, or was it therapeutic?
Both. Both. All the book was painful and therapeutic, but this was particularly special because I did write this in the AWA writers group as a journaling exercise. And again, stream of consciousness. There's Snowball. Hello, Snowball. And I cried my eyes out writing it, because in the group we would write it and then we would read, and I was hysterical sobbing. I mean, I could not control myself. And I remember thinking, God, what do they think of me? But I mean, I was really upset. So it made sense. And other people were crying. Lynn Carey was crying, who edited my book. She was there. And honestly, I felt better. I felt like a huge weight was lifted into the sky and gone. I didn't think that writing for me had been professional. And I never had that strong reaction before from writing anything. So it was a very important part of my healing, of my journey, and a huge part of the book.
Okay. We have a question from another participant, which I think is a great question. Is bipolar disorder hereditary? Did anyone else in your family have it? And are you concerned about your child inheriting it? Do you watch for signs?
Yeah, totally loaded question. Make sure I don't forget the last one. So first of all, most likely is the answer to that question, because people weren't talking about mental illness. They weren't getting diagnosed with bipolar. They weren't going to the doctor. They were drinking. They were doing other things that were hurting themselves. Maybe someone would like go away for a while, or, oh, so-and-so is a heavy drinker or whatever. It was never diagnosed. So I have cousins. I'm 49. I have younger cousins who have bipolar, who are bipolar, and others who worry about it. And we've always kind of sometimes the cousins will talk and say, geez, you think maybe this person, or maybe this was in our family. Most likely, yes, it is hereditary. I think that answered the first two. Yes, I'm looking for signs. And I had a very good friend of mine who I was angry with at the time, but I understand her point was, if you're having kids, would you worry that it would be passed on? And you know what? Yes, but it wasn't going to keep me from having the joy of having a child in my life. And I'll tell you what, I have the lens on, the radar on now, and I'll be the best mother of a bipolar person, because I'm bipolar and I know all the ways to avoid all the bad things. I hope. We always think we can avoid it, but my education and my experience will absolutely help me navigate any issue with my child, or with other people. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
and
always worried about it.
Yeah, and I think I found kind of the introduction where you talk about your childhood reassuring, because you had a very nice childhood. I mean, you had loving parents and two sisters, and you did well in school, and you were active in sports. So I mean, you started off in a good place, it seemed like, and it's your fault.
Mad shout out to my mom, Sandy McKenna, who's on the call today. It's like 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning, and I think she's in Connecticut. But no, I had great parents, and my mother's guided me all the way through not only my life and all that. She's been there for me every second. She rescued me from Ohio. She answered the phone calls. She showed up when I needed her at the hospital, and I'm really lucky that I have that. A lot of people don't. And she guided me as well through this process and painful process of writing the book, putting the book out. I was worried about my family. I'm glad that they're supporting me. So yeah, I've been really lucky to have that support throughout my life.
So what would be your top 3 tips for someone with bipolar?
I would say not just bipolar, but someone maybe who isn't sure, or they're having mental health problems. Maybe it's because of COVID, maybe. My biggest tip, go to the doctor, see a professional. Don't do any care and stuff. I love essential oils. I talk about alternative treatments in my book as complementary therapies, but don't listen to people who say, suck it up, or you're fine, or there's nothing wrong with you, or that's dumb. Do not listen to those people. Go to a professional medical doctor and get evaluated. That is absolutely, I'll just say probably that's my number one, top tier, number one of all time tip is don't wait. Don't waste your time or your life. Don't wait till something bad happens. See a doctor. They're trained, especially nowadays. The psychiatrists are different. They actually do a little more therapeutic talk with you more than back when I was first diagnosed. So there's some really excellent medical care around the world, people who will listen, people who will know, but please go to professionals. You know, I'm happy to share my experience. Everything I say is my experience, not medical advice. But that's my number one tip is go to the doctor. And number two, look for ways that you can help yourself. I was lucky I had people like Chris and my family that said, we want to help you help yourself. We're helping you get a dog to help yourself. Chris, I'm going to help you, empower you to make changes to help yourself to get better. So I would say those probably two. There's probably more, but let's stick with those two.
Okay. And you are incredibly busy. I mean, it's almost overwhelming. And I was trying to, I couldn't fit everything in the introduction. Is that just that I know everyone's different. I mean, is that just kind of your comfort zone is to stay as active and involved as you possibly can?
Yeah, it is. And I also am so glad that I'm here, that I just want to give as much as I can to the world that supported me and kept me alive and kept me going. And I feel really strongly compelled to give back to people who need help. And also doing things for people like that I like, and my friends in the AWA, and teaching yoga. I really enjoy it. And in a sense, to be really honest, is that it does burn off some of that manic energy that I still maintain, that I still need to keep grounded. But there are times, and some of you on here on this call know that I do need to sit down and take it easy. And if there's one thing people tell me is slow down. So yeah, I could probably slow down a little bit more, but it is how I developed my personality too. Now I'm just doing good with it, not hurting myself.
Yeah. So this book, was clearly a huge undertaking. I know a couple of writers, they say it's like giving birth, I mean, just going through the whole process. And now that your baby has arrived, the book has been published, and congratulations. Time consuming and emotionally draining. I mean, how do you feel now that it's done? And now here you are at your book launch.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited to get to this point. I mean, it was like, I didn't realize it would be life before the book and life after the book. So it just shifted, I mean, I'm never going to sit and relax. So we know that, but I feel really good about reaching that huge milestone in my career as a writer, the publishing process is another story for another time, but it was the right time. It was the right time in my life. It was the right time in the world. With COVID and having the lens on mental health where people were interested and maybe looking for solutions for themselves. I feel really good about it. And I do have to look forward and see, how far do I want to go with this? Do I want to call Oprah? Do I want to do tons of sales, which is not my forte, but I know I do want to keep reaching out and helping people with the work and with the talk shows that I do. And I did want to throw this out while I have a moment that if you go to bipolarphoenix.com and the first person from this session who registers for my newsletter, subscribes to my newsletter, I'm going to send you a free book. So please jump on there, bipolarphoenix.com. Signed book, I'll sign it.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be wonderful. It's always great to have a signed book. So I just want to offer one more opportunity if anyone has any questions to put them down in the Q&A box down there. And one just popped up from Lorraine. Did your dog go through any special training to be a therapy dog, or was it just a special bond between dog and human?
No, he had very specific training. It's in my book, but I'll tell you anyway. I'd love for you to, when you get to that point page, you'll be able to read about it. I found a psychiatric service dog trainer who lived 10 minutes from my mother's house. He was the only one in the state and one of the first ones ever, really. He was a military dog trainer. So I had a military dog trainer trained Loki to be a psychiatric service dog. There's 3 things that they have to do for you. They have to provide 3 tasks. One was security, one was tactile stimulation, and the other one was something to do with he would recognize if I was like failing or maybe didn't take my medication. Honestly, you can train a dog to do these things. Push the medication off the table, like really, it's true. So he had special training. He had to be trained in supermarkets, on a plane, in restaurants, in a mall, on a car. We had special training, yes.
Yeah, no, because I have some friends who do some, blind dog, guide dogs for the blind.
Same. It's the same.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. So I think just to wrap it up, I'm curious, how do points in the book apply to the general public, especially with COVID? Because I really think that this pandemic is going to have lingering impacts on society in general, as far as mental health. And I mean, even people who I feel, are super strong emotionally are struggling right now. So, so how can this book help put a spotlight on the need for more focused wellness, both inside and out as well?
Well, basically, I'm looking at the table of contents right now, and I remember making this list. What are the things that I can do to improve my mental health? You could take out that it was bipolar. You could add anything into that, slot anything in, and say, okay, have a treatment plan. Identify there's a problem. Have a treatment plan. Find your family. Get a dog. Exercise your body and mind. Talk to a professional. Reduce exposures to negative triggers. Stay accountable to the world. Meditate, pray, be mindful. Get help managing money if you need that. Dealing with stigma. Practice success and happiness. Love yourself. Those are all all chapters, and I think those can really be applied to any mental health, anything that's fallen away in your life, anything that's gone wrong. These are ways that you can kind of climb back. I mean, Phoenix, burn, reborn, burn, reborn. Keep it moving. Keep rolling.
Yeah. And no regrets, really. It sounds like. I mean, obviously, you've had a bumpy road, but you had to get down in the ashes in order to rise up again. So that, I think that's why the name of the book is so appropriate.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Andrea. And again, we have here the Bipolar Phoenix is available in print and Kindle format at Amazon. You can reach Andrea at her email address and visit her website, and she is going to be giving away a free book, right, to the first person who pops on there.
Yeah, first person who subscribes.
Yeah.
Just want to say thanks to the American Association for hosting my first and only and ever book launch. And I really appreciate all the support from the AAS. Joe and Madeline worked really hard to get this on board. Tori, my friend and mentor, who agreed to be the host, and to all of you who attended. It means a whole lot to have all of your support. And I sure look forward to seeing all of you again.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations again. And I think I speak for everybody who are sending their congratulations as well. And best of luck with
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. Have a great night.
Good night. Thank you. Come say goodbye. Come here.